Hello, welcome to another segment of Feel the Freezer Outdoors. Today I'm going to show you how to fillet a walleye the way that I like to do it. It's not a speed way, not a fast way, but it is a quality way. You're going to be able to get all your meat without losing any of it. So it'll take a little bit more time, but I think it's worth it. You get more meat than a lot of people that use electric knives and just zip, zip, zip through it. So stay tuned here. We'll take you through step by step how to get this walleye from the field and prepped and ready for your freezer. Okay, so the first thing I like to use is I like to use a more rigid knife. I kind of have a boning knife here. It's actually a cheap $2-3 Walmart fillet knife, but it is really stiff, hard to bend. I use this a lot for cleaning a lot of my big game, deboning deer meat. Works real well for that. Also works real well for getting the fillets off from the carcass. So I start out, first of all, I'm going to slip in behind the dorsal fin, or the side fin here, and I'm going to cut up at an angle right up to the spine and get behind this gill plate. I'm going to cut half the head right here, and then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Then I'm just going to cut straight through. And pop the head right off. Next, I'm going to come in with my more flexible fillet knife. And this is an outdoor edge folding fillet knife. Then I'm going to come in here and get what they call the cheeks on the walleye. Okay, so the next part of the walleye is going to be the cheeks. I'm going to take the cheek off from the head of the walleye. This is a lot of people's favorite part of the walleye. There's a soft spot, if you feel, between the eye and the gill plate. You'll feel it. It's really soft, and it goes almost in a circle. So what I like to do is I like to just start cutting a little area where I can start to work with, and then just work my way, scooping it out from underneath where the jawline and the gill plate is underneath here. I know some people that actually take old spoons and they'll sharpen an old spoon and they'll just come right in and scoop it out like a scoop of ice cream. I am not quite to that level myself. I just like to take my time, make sure I get it done, maximizing every little piece I can get out of here. And you'll feel it with your knife too, especially if you have a nice flexible blade. And this knife is sharp. I just am really scraping the bone, taking my time here. Once you get a nice little flap going, get a handle onto it. Try not to waste any of the fish. And there's your little walleye cheek. I've already done the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and pitch the head. And then I'll show you, move it to a cleaner part of the table, and I'll just hold the cheek down with a finger. I'll slide my knife in between the skin and the cheek. I'll work my blade to the end so I have a nice little flap. Flip it around. Basically I'll turn my blade the opposite way and just use it for leverage. As I'll hold the cheek down with a knife and just pull the skin off. Discard the skin, and it leaves me with one nice little bite-sized morsel of walleye cheek. Okay, for this next step, I go back to my more rigid knife. I take the walleye without the head, and I'm going to make a line from top all the way to tail on one side of the spine, and then I'll do another line on the other side of the spine all the way down to the tail. So I'll start up top, and I won't go all the way down. You'll feel where you start to get some resistance where the ribs tie into the spine, and that's where I'll stop. And I'll just follow that spine and those ribs. And like I said, you can do this a lot quicker. There's a lot quicker methods to do it. Those electric fillet knives, I've seen YouTube videos of them where they just fillet a fish in 10 seconds. And that looks awesome. I do think they lose a lot of meat. Well, not a lot, but once you start adding up a bunch of fish, it totals to be a lot. Once you get to about halfway down on this bottom fin here, so I have my cut about halfway down to this bottom fin, about halfway point there. Then I'm going to slide my knife straight through, and I'll keep it right above where that spine is. And I'll poke it straight through, and then I'll just run it along that bony part of the fish. There's a spine up top, and there's also a bone that runs from the back of the ribs all the way to the tail, right in the middle of the fish. So I'm going to slip it above the spine here, and then above that vertebrae here, and I'll run that vertebrae with the blade parallel with the fillet all the way out the tail. So I just kind of, there, I felt it right there, getting some resistance. I bring my knife up just a little bit over the top of it, bring it down through midpoint on the back side where that bottom fin is, and then I'll just ride. You'll feel it, just keeping my blade angled downward just slightly so I can ride this bone right here. You can hear it. And then I'll flip it over and I'll do the same to the other side. So now I'm going to come through, hold the fish upright again. I'm going to use my blade where these ribs are, and I'm going to cut straight down, breaking all the ribs. I'm going to do that to both sides. And you'll be able to hear the ribs break. And I pinch the fish together because, I mean, it's all loose up here from freeing it apart. So I'm going to pinch it together and just press straight down with the knife. And you'll feel the ribs. And you don't have to go down all the way to your cutting board. You just have to go until you break the ribs. And just work your way all the way up the fish until you've got all those ribs broken and freed. Now I do the same on the other side. Okay, now that you've broke free your ribs on each side, all you have to do now is just grab the tail and start pulling all of the spine and bony section and guts right out of the fish. And just discard that in the garbage, come in, and you'll cut and separate your two fillets. And you'll have a fin on the back side here, which I've already disconnected. You'll have that still attached. Just disconnect that and toss it. Then you can come back in with your more flexible fillet knife, and if you run your fingers against the grain of the fish, you'll feel your ribs. You'll feel where you disconnected them from the spine, and you want to kind of work your fillet knife in above those. This will be the top of the fish, bottom. If you got it upside down, you kind of want to work it in above those and run your thumb behind it to make sure you're staying on track. And you're just trying to expose it, expose those ribs a little bit. What the ribs will do is they'll run straight down the fish for just a little bit, and then they'll curve and run outward. So you want to run your blade down a little bit and then outward, just scooping them out. So I've got it exposed downward, and now I'm going to slide as parallel as I can with my cutting board and get on the back side of the ribs, and you'll feel the ribs. You don't want to cut them. You just want to free them up from the meat. That's all. And I'm just running my blade along those ribs. And to make sure I don't miss anything, you can feel your finger where the ribs actually stop, and then I'll just run my blade straight out from where the ribs actually stop. And I'll leave all the meat on there. And then I'll just pitch my ribs. You can run your finger again, this time not towards the head but towards the tail, and you will feel right in line with that bone that was on the back half of your fish here. Right in line with it, you'll feel little tiny bones. And what I'll do is I'll bring my knife not straight perpendicular to the counter, but just at an angle on each side. I'll angle it. I'll get on the bottom of that and I'll angle it up towards the top, and then I'll come in from the top of it and angle it right towards the bottom. And I'll just make one long incision all the way down to about halfway back on the fish and stop. And then I'll come on the top, angle it towards the bottom, and make one long incision getting above it about halfway down. And that's it. You should be able to run your finger through it and it should open up. And then on the other side the same. Next, I'm going to detach the fillet from the skin. And this is where it all comes down to making your fillet look really good. I'll just pinch this bottom section of the tail here with my fingernail, and I'll pin it right to the board, and then I'll use my knife and I'll cut straight down until I get to that skin, and then I'll angle it right parallel with the board, and I will press my knife down firm, flexing my blade, and just run it all the way up the fish. So once I get it started here, then I'll actually move my finger up a little bit, get a better grip, and I'll flex my knife down, and I'll pull my skin back too, get it nice and firm there, the skin, so it's not bunching up. And I'll occasionally run up a little bit on it with my hand as I work my way down, just so I can keep a better grip and nothing gets away from me. And once I have it all disconnected, I'll grab that little zipper bone deal and I'll just zipper it right out, cut it off right here, discard. throw that skin away. And it's left me with one boneless, skinless walleye fillet. Alright, my final step here is to take my fillet and rinse it off. Just going to use some cold water. Just going to rinse it off real well. Okay, so I've rinsed off both my fillets. I went ahead and filleted the other side of that fish. Rinsed them off. I put them on some paper towel on a plate. Placed some paper towel on top. Kind of just patted them down, pat dry. I don't want to put them in my bag wet. I want to try to help prevent freezer burn. I went ahead and I've already cut down one of my roll-off food saver bags and sealed the end of it. I make it about the size of the fillet. I don't try to get it any bigger because it's going to crunch down a little bit. And I just open my bag up. I like to lay my fillet right down there in the bag, just so. I'll come and get the other side. Put that in there. I like to drop them in opposite angles. Put one end one way and the other in the other. And then whatever your food saver type product is, whether it's a food saver or another brand, if you're even using something like this, just follow their instructions for it. I'll just place mine in there like so, close it down, lock it up, and I hit seal, vacuum and seal. Then I check the seal, make sure I'm good. That should be fine. And I have one nice Michigan filleted walleye, boneless, skinless, ready for the freezer. I'll show you real quick. I got one right here. Boom. That's what they look like out of the freezer. I just stack them on top of each other like that inside my freezer. Don't take up a lot of space. Hey, thanks again for watching my video on how to fillet a walleye. Like I said, there's other ways to do it. This way is the way that works for me. It's the best quality method that I've found. There's other methods you can use. A lot of them are a lot quicker, but I'm not in any hurry. I try to maximize the meat off from the fish and not let anything go to waste. I hope you can take something away from my video. I hope you learned something. I hope it helped you. If you excuse me, I got another 4 I got to bag up here. We're allowed 5 a day in Michigan, so that was 1. I've got my other 4 for my limit to do. If you like us, please give us a big thumbs up and please subscribe. Thanks again. Have a good day.